Hello, students. Yesterday I sent you a video, 20-minute video, I think, or it was 40 minutes. I don't know. I don't remember. But we talked about problem number 17.1, 17.2, 17.3, and even you saw the grades. Now, we are talking about a very interesting and easy problem that I want to show you to solve it in four different ways and see how we can do that. In this course, you will learn in this problem how to use Excel to solve this problem. We will use we can use calculator to solve this problem, and we can use mathematics on how to solve this problem. As long as you get correct answer, you get the full grade for this problem 17.4. But I want to show you four different ways, because if you are a good financial manager, if you are a good accountant, if you work for businesses, you have to be able to do calculations. You have to come up with numbers. Let's see first what the problem is, and then how we can use these different scenarios to solve this simple problem. First of all, the problem is here in Microsoft Word. And in this problem, it's easy to understand. And let's see what it is. An investor buys shares of no-load mutual fund. No-load mutual fund is that no-load means that, think about it as if there is no commission for it. Some of you bought stocks in Schwab, and it was no commission. You bought Amazon, you bought SoundHound, and it says mutual fund. When we say mutual fund, that means it is not just one stock, it's a basket of stocks. There are 20, 30, 40 stocks are inside this, bond, and the bond manager, puts them together and sells you a small piece of, that bond. It's just like someone who is making a mixture of a soup, A soup, you might have vegetables in it, you might have some beans in it, He mixes it up, and then he gives you a bowl of that soup for $10, Therefore, you have a meat might be expensive. You pay $10 for that soup. In that, major pot of soup, there might be $50 worth of, meat, $100 worth of vegetables. But what you are doing is that you are mixing a bowl of soup, which means that manager, uses some kind of scoops and puts one, bowl. Therefore, that's concept of mutual fund. How that manager, let's say, how did he sell you one bowl of that soup? It is he or she charged you $39. After 7 years, your $39 became $50. This is a simple situation because it's just like investment. You put $39 and your $39 after 7 years becomes, $50. Therefore, in this case, we have some questions. It's just like a bank. You put $39, you put it in the bank. After 7 years, your money is $50. It's very simple. You want to know what kind of interest the bank gave you. That's the question, and how you can calculate this. You have already done that, but we will look at different ways of calculating this simple interest, although we call it compound interest, which we will tell you what the compound means, and then we go from there. It says, what is the percentage return on your investment? Percentage return for now doesn't have anything to interest rate. The second question is asking you about the interest rate. The percentage of return is very easy to calculate. If you put $50 and after $50 your money is 100, you say that the percentage of return is 100% because your $50 doubled. When something is doubling, that means you have 100% increase. If your $50 becomes 150, that means you have had 200%. For every 100%, $50 goes on your account. Therefore, the concept of the first part is very easy, and we will show the calculation for this part. And the second part is what we want to use to see how can we, what kind of interest did you get? What kind of growth? Because sometimes in finance, rather than using the name interest rate, they use growth rate. Both of them think about it as the same. Therefore, the higher growth rate you have, the better it is, a better return you have. Now, let's go and see what kind of the first part of the question is what percentage of return you had. And when we come here, the percentage of return is right in here. You put $39, it went to 50. You subtract them to see how much it went up. If I subtract, you might have guessed, this is $11. You made $11 on how much? On $39. Therefore, you divide that $11 by 39, you get 28.21% increase in your money. Therefore, one rough guess for you is that if you put your money, if you put $39 and it went to $50 in period of 7 years, that means that, do you know 7 times 4 is 28%? Your first guess would be you have made 4% a year, because if you make 4%, then your $39 should come close to $50, because 4 times 7 is 28. But the actual number is more than 4%. Why? Because of the compounding effect. Compounding effect is when during first year, it's true, you get 4%. But when you get 4%, let's say 4% of this $40, 4 times 4 is, for example, $60. 4 times 4, 16. $60. If I add this $60 to this, that will be $40.60. And then the next year, the money that is going to earn interest for you is not 39 anymore. It is $40.60. Do you see? Each year, your money is growing, and that growth also will give you interest. That's called compounding interest. When that growth doesn't give you interest, then in that case, yes, you are getting 4%. But you are getting interest on top of the interest that you get during the first year. First year, it gave you $1.60. You get not only interest rate on that for $39, you get interest on that $1.16 during second year. Then therefore, the second year, you might have, instead of $39, you have a $4, you have $1.69 that was interest. Then on that year, they give you interest on 2 components, on 39 and on 169. On third year, they give you even more because you have got 2 interests now. One was for the year, first year, one for the second year. Each one of them, the first one was for 1.69. The second one might be $2.2. You combine this, that's why it goes at a faster rate. Therefore, at this point, you know that the interest that you are going to get because of compounding would be much more than 4% a year. In fact, the actual number is 6.31%, and we see how to calculate that. One way to calculate is to go to our calculator. Here it is. This is our calculator, and we click Finance Calculator. You already did that. And it is interest I. I means interest, what interest you got, what growth rate you had. Number of periods, it was 7 years. And we said how much at today's money you put, at the beginning you put, it was $39. When you put the money Did the fund manager, did the closed-end fund manager give you any dividend, anything? No, it was zero. However, at the end, the value of your money is $50, which I put, imagine the manager gave you your $50 back. Therefore, it is important to use this calculator to have this negative here, otherwise you do not get a clear answer. And what we explain why there is a negative number here is that here, this money goes out of your pocket, you give it to the manager, but because this $50 is the money from manager, you are, comes to you, that is negative. Even if it is the money is in the hands of manager, this is the money that should come to you. Here, the money that you went from you to the manager was positive. The money that from the manager comes to you should be negative. And now I click calculate. Do you see? Therefore, it is the interest 3.61. That is the, interest that you get. Of course, we will figure out when we said that, it was 7 years and we said it is supposed to be more than 4%, 4 times, 7 came 38. We explained that. But for now, I want you to, have in mind that, the compounding interest at this moment is 3.61. Now, we go back to see what other ways do we have to calculate this, formula. I use Excel and I come here. It looks a little bit strange, but I will show you step by step. You are a business student and you are going to be financial manager. And if you are a financial manager, you are supposed to, be able to use Excel. You are supposed to be, utilizing these tools. And now let's see how I use Excel to solve this problem. I use Excel in 2 ways. One way is that I set in now, I put equal sign here, present value, P. How much your money you gave to the fund manager? Oops, I don't know why I got rid of, but I will bring that number out. $39, and number of period is 7, and the future value of your money is $50. We have a mathematical question to use. Imagine you don't have access to the calculator. Can you use Excel to do the calculation for you? The answer is yes. How can we do that? We can use the Excel as a regular calculator. That's how I used it this time. And this is the formula that although looks strange, but you have seen this formula. You will see this formula when it's a very foundational formula for all business, financial, for time value of money, to see what is F, means future value of the money. We already know F here, that's 50. P means present value. We already know that is 39. 1, we already know 1 is N, means number of years. We have it for 7 years. Therefore, it tells you what we don't know is not this number G. G means growth rate, this interest rate. What rate did you get? How did your money, at what rate, it went up? And you can use, as I said, Excel has that power. I plug in the numbers. I say $50 is equal to 39, parentheses 1 plus G to the power 7. And when I do that, I see how I can get help from Excel. Now, in order to solve this math problem, I have to divide both sides of the equation by 39. Do you see that? To make sure this multiplication is disappearing. By dividing it, I can use Excel to do this calculation. I want to calculate 50 divided by 39. Rather than using the calculator, I have to put equal sign and then put 50 divided by 39, And the answer, when you do it, when you type it correctly, you get 1.28, and excuse me. Therefore, this side of the equation here becomes 1.28 is equal sign 1 plus g to the power 7. Now we have to solve this problem. The problem that is causing the issue that is causing here is this power. In Excel, to use power, do you see this, this arrow sign that is upside down to the power? It has the power sign that you can use, and Excel understands that. And I have to get rid of this power is causing problem. How can I get to this power resolved? Is that if I multiply each side of these two equations by 1 over 7. Do you see here I have 7? 7 times 1 over 7, it is 1. That means it will cancel out. Therefore, I multiply this side of the equation by 1.1 over 7, and I multiply this side also. When this 1 plus g, is to the power 1, because 7 times 1 over 7 is 1. Therefore, this side of the equation simplifies and becomes 1.g, and this side of the equation is 1.28 to the power 1 divided by 1/7. Now, Excel can easily calculate that. How? I put my equal sign. I say 1.28 to the power. I open the parenthesis, I put 1 divided by 7, I close the parenthesis, and I get 1.036. And then, therefore, this side of the equation is 1.036. This side of the equation is 1.g. And now, when I solve this problem, I, add -1 here, -1 here, the g will become 0.036, and this becomes 3.6%. Do you all remember when we use calculator.net? Do you see we got 3.6 here? Of course, this, the one we calculated is rounding off, but 3.6 is the same as what Excel did. But guess what? Excel has another way to make our life easy, and that is called Excel function. The students who know Excel, that is going to make. I wanted you to show the complete mathematical solution to, this problem. Now, I want you it's great that you students in finance learn how to use mathematics as well. And if you want to do this, I'll go again here and show you another way to calculate this. Do you see this f of x? This is function of x. It is asking you, what do you want to do? I click here. I want some financial calculator. Excel is asking me, what do you want to calculate? I want to say, I'm saying that to Excel, I want to calculate my rate. Do you see here is written rate? And I click OK. Now Excel is asking me, okay, what do you want to calculate? What is the number of period that you are going to calculate? You all know how many years is that? You all know from here, it is 7. Therefore, I put 7. Although I could click there, I put 7. Payment, when you put money to that mutual fund, is the fund manager during 7 years going to give you any money? 0. How much are you giving to the manager? Is 39. How much manager is going to give you, or how much is the value of your money, future value? You know it is $50. And I put $50, and guess what? And when I put that, I saw the number of, 3.61 somewhere here. Let me click OK and see if I get 36. Do you see here? I think this 36.1 in here is where it came. Do you see that 36.1 is the same as this 36.0? Therefore, so far you have learned three ways of calculating this future value of this fund. Therefore, now there is, as I said, you can use paper and pen to calculate it, which means you can use your own basic calculator, which I did. Look at here, I use paint, although it looks very ugly, but it gives you the idea. Future value equals to present value 1 plus g to the power 7. As you know, it's hard to use mouse to write these things. That's why they look very, crazy. Therefore, we say future value $50 equal to 93, the $39. That's present value 1 plus g to the power 7. We divide both sides of the equation by 50. Even if you use pen and pencil paper, you will get the same amount. And then divided by 39 equals to 1 plus g to the power 7. And then we multiply each one of these two sides of the equation by 1 over 7. When you multiply this number by 1.7, it gives you 1. Do you see here it is? Do you see 1 g? Do you see this? If you get this one, this power becomes 1. And then what you end up having is that here it becomes 1.28 to the power 17. And on this side of the equation, because this becomes 8, then you will have on this side of the equation, you will have 1.28 to the power 17. This becomes 1 plus g. Now here, let me write 7. It's more like a 2 I have written. Now, how can you do this? There are two ways. You can use your calculator and you divide 1 divided by 7, or you can say what is the, 1 divided by 7, and then you can put 1.28 to the power, whatever number is, and then this becomes 1 plus g. If you remember, this number, when we looked at the Excel, came to, I think, 1.036, and then this side was 1 plus g, 1 plus g. If you add -1 here, -1 here, your g here becomes 0.036, which is the same as 3.6%, or 3 point more exactly 3.61%. I wanted to show you how to use these things, because you are going to be a financial manager. You can use these as at work. When you graduate, the bank hires you, you have a lot of tools at your disposal to use to do these calculations. It might have been easy to go to other, AI and ask them to calculate. But the more you understand this, the better it is, the better product. Make sure not to rely on artificial intelligence to solve your problems. Make sure, because these are the ones that are going to make you smart. You will be able to use these things. Now, I go back to here. If any student, I told you that all I want you to do for this week to get 10 points, create this one in Excel, create this one with my previous video, create this one with Excel. If you want to continue and solve the other problems, that would be fine. Look at here. If a student goes and does what I did in here and use this, and also use function f of x to calculate the growth rate, then we will, I will give that student extra point. That student might decide, we said there are 8 problems. So far, these are 4. If students want to get extra credit, they can go and solve the other problem. And let's say they solve the problem number 5. Do you see here? That student will click here, will click rename, and then types problem 5. You are not required to do problems number 4 and 5 in here to create Excel chart to submit, but you are supposed to solve it where you see the problem that was in here. As you all see, you are supposed to solve this problem on in here. As you see, you are supposed to solve all 8 problems. You already know somewhat the answers because I am showing you in this, in these videos that are going to make your easy. You solve this, you solve this, you solve this, and then transfer this information to Excel. If you manage to transfer this one, this one, this one, this one, this one to Excel, you get extra point. For these 3 problems, you get 10 points, because you used Excel, as well as you have to solve them here. Now, I show you this one. Let's look at problem 1705. I don't use Excel for it, just we want to talk about it to make sure you understand the concept of the chapter. And I come here and see what problem 17.5 is. And I come here and I want you to, okay, this is something that you have to do this calculation in here and copy this one and put this chart on the discussion board. That way it shows me that you are able to solve this component of, here, because the problem is asking you what growth rate, annual growth return you have, for this problem, and then we go there and we go. And the reason I said that the compounding rate should be less than 4%. Why? Why at the beginning when I said the compounding rate is going to be more than 4%, it had a reason. I'll tell you, is that in real world, when you put money, if they give you simple interest, you make less money. If they give you compounding interest, you make more money. That's why, here, the reason it says compounding 36.1 is less than 4, because 33.61, by compounding, it will reach you, it has got you into $50. Therefore, it has had a bigger impact because it gives you more money. At the first year, it gives you 3.61, and then next year it adds to your interest. Therefore, the effective rate of this will be 4%. Now, one thing you always know about credit card companies, they give you 2 interest rates. You have to be careful why it is 2, because one is a simple rate, one is effective rate. That effective rate sometimes means that they are charging you more, because in reality you are not paying your payments at the end of the year. You are paying every month. There is a difference between you pay every month and paying it at the end of the year. Therefore, your preference as a credit card holder, you want to, if they say the interest rate is at 7%, your wish is that they don't charge you. They wait until you pay that at the end of the year. But although they are telling you that your interest rate is at 7, but in reality it is more than 7, because you are not waiting by the end of the month year to pay. You are paying monthly. It's good for the credit card company because your money keeps coming to them. Therefore, this is something I want you to have in mind. We go in here and we look at problem 17. I go through this, briefly to see what we can do. Let's say 12 months ago, that means a year ago, you bought shares of No Load Mutual Fund for 22.25. Okay, and that means, as I said, no load most likely means that you are not paying interest, and the fund gives you cash dividend of 80 cents, which is great. Where did this dividend come from? Because this fund in here has stocks of maybe Walmart, Amazon, and other companies. Those companies have to pay dividend to this manager. When they give dividend to this manager, that means they give some of their profits to your company, because this company, this manager is the owner. You are the owner of those, shares. And then the manager, because feels a little profit, it says, let's give you 80 cents for every share that you have. Therefore, you make 80 cents. And also, you have a capital gain of $1.4 per share. Again, manager most likely gives you an additional money of $1.4 in addition to dividend. And then guess what? After 12 months, if you decide to sell your share that you bought it for $22, you are selling it by $24. You are one lucky person. Why? Because your $22 went to $24. That means you'd make 10%, because 10% of $22 is $2. And then when it becomes 24, that you make 10% there. Also, 80 cents is equivalent maybe to 5%. 5% and 10% here, you made 15%, and this is about, another 5-6%. Do you see that you have made almost 25%? Therefore, it has been a great fund for you, and a great manager who is doing, is running your, which means this manager is smart. He or she buying stocks of good companies that are appreciating and giving dividends. Therefore, when you buy mutual funds, which is right here, you have to see what the performance of the fund has been in the past several years. If it has been a successful fund, it has been paying, dividends. It has paying good, Sometimes they might not pay dividends, but the fund might grow quickly. Instead of 22, suddenly it becomes 28 here. You say, oh, this fund already has, 40% in 1 year return it has had. Therefore, it wants to find out that what here is that what was your annual annual rate of return in 1 year. And then if this is the second question, if the value of the shares had been 21, do you see this year the manager did an excellent job, because the share from $22 went to 24, and also it gave you 80 cents here and $1.45 here. Now, a year after, things go bad. Look at that. The same money that, and imagine you bought it for $22, and it dropped to, to $25. Here, the manager did very bad. Not only the fund dropped to this, it didn't give you any dividends, and it didn't give you any capital gain. Therefore, that's a sad situation for this year. You can do these calculations. And of course, as I said, it is a Cengage problem. I want you to solve this problem. Students who can go there and show it in Excel here, and as problem number 5, put the numbers here, let Excel do the calculation for them, they get extra credit. Those who don't do this 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, if they don't do this in Excel, they don't lose any points. It's just extra credit I want to give. However, I am hoping you'll be able to do this 1, 2, 3, and submit it to the Excel situation, section. And I would say that then we go here. Again, that was problem number 17.5. And here is the feedback. Do you see the first case? You made a lot of money. These are the money that during first year can come back to you. You only paid 22, 25. You divide whatever you made at the end, whatever divide by the amount of money that you put. Do you see this 20% that came to you? But, and in the case of when, the funds dropped, what happened is that in the funds drop, the manager still gave you the dividend. The manager still gave you that, capital appreciation. Therefore, he or she gave you this money. You add that to the money that, original money, and then let's see it, to the what it worth in 12 months, it dropped. And then you divide it by 25, 2.5. That means during second year, for example, you only made, of course, I don't call it second year. The reason I call it second year, I call it a different scenario. Because in second year, we have to look the original money at 24. Because we are using it, or the original money at 22, this is the second case scenario, not second case. That means instead of another manager, let's say, got $22, and this is what your fund is after 1 year, and then it has dropped to 5.03. Therefore, if this fund if you are the owner of this fund and you decide to sell this fund, suppose these are by two different managers, you can sell this with a premium because you can claim that, oh, this is a good manager. But for this one, you have to sell it at a discount because this manager is not, returning a lot. And the solution, and this is another problem, and it says that this manager, do you see, fund has a 5% front load fee. Where it says front load fee, imagine that if you want to buy this for $22 from the manager is charging you 5%. Think about it as commission. Therefore, it's a cost, okay? And net asset value of this much, this is just like, price of this stock. And during the year, they gave you the distributed some capital gains, and the net asset value went up. That means the value of stocks, or net asset value, although I say stocks, but mutual fund, growth fund, went to from 1660, it went to 1830. Therefore, what is your return? The return that you have is that you had some damage here. You see 5% went out of your pocket. However, you had an income of 125. Also, your $16 became 1830. Therefore, you have to take all these into consideration and do the calculation, and then therefore here net asset value, that's the purchase price. Do you see? When the net asset value was 1660, you had to pay 5%, of this asset, as commission. Therefore, the real money that you paid was 17.43, not 16. If it was no load fund, you only would have paid 16, means no load fund, means no commission. But because there is a commission, you had to pay it, and this is what you paid. Then you come here and other whatever it was, whatever you paid, whatever is value today, the price went up. And also, the fund manager gave you $1.25. However, you subtract the cost that you paid for it, and you divide it by what you paid for it to see the growth rate, to see the return that you had. Therefore, in order to get a return, you have to subtract whatever you paid from whatever it is the value is your return, and then you divide it by what you paid for. That is your return. Here it is another scenario, and that is, do you see here it says 1660? You know what I think? This one was 1743. Where the number, the difference came from? The difference came from this commission. Maybe this manager who is selling similar fund is not charging commission. That's why we don't see this 5% of this in here. Maybe this, we should call this maybe no load fund. This is, a 5% load, fund. Therefore, this one is giving you a higher return. Why? Because it's not charging you a commission. Do you remember I was talking about buying NVIDIA shares? Then at the end I said, oh, don't buy because there is a commission to it. Therefore, our goal in fund, when you buy mutual funds, when you want to invest, you want to see how much managers are charging. Usually they charge, the manager charges, let's say, a 0.025. The meaning of fund, your mutual fund, is when it says 0.025, that means if you give that fund manager $10,000, in 1 year, the manager for his or her service charges you 0.025, which just think about it as $25 for 10,000. I am not worried about that, commission. It's not that much, 0.025 on $10,000. I pay $25. I would, if it is a great manager, why not? Because he or she might be a smart investor. I will, pay. I buy that mutual fund, and I say let him, or her, deduct his, commission or whatever. And then if it is 2,500, 0.025 would be, $2.50 or 2,500. That might be that much. But if a fund manager comes and tells me he or she wants 1% commission, therefore, as a kind of, 1%, no way I am going to give a manager 1% commission for his mutual fund. That will cost me a lot. And therefore, he takes that money. He's paying himself a lot of money. So therefore, you will calculate 1% of, 10,000, how much in $100, in $1,000 is $10. In $100,000 a year out of 10,000 that I am putting, he wants commission. Therefore 1% is, they say it is a kind of, a lot. Of course, we have to see what kind of manager it is. If it is an excellent manager, in the past 10 years, he or she has been able to provide a return of 30% to this, investment. Why not? I give him 1%, If he gives me, if it has shown 10 years in a row, the money has had a return of 30%. If I put my money in the bank, it is 1%. That manager has been giving 30%. I don't mind to give him 1% commission because my return would be 29%. 29% is still a great, return. Therefore, there are issues you have to think as financial manager, because when you work for, let's say a bank, the bank comes to you and says, we have $50 million sitting in the bank. They want you to give it to buy some mutual funds, because these are the money of the customers. If you put it in the bank and it's, it's earning no interest, bank is going to lose money. You have to invest this $50 million as employee of the bank somewhere. Where is that somewhere? You go to and buy mutual funds, you go and buy bonds, you go and invest in other companies. That way, the bank can become richer. The shareholders, their money will grow, will go up and up. The bank, the depositors won't be richer and richer because their money is in the saving account and is earning 1%. However, because you are a good employee of the bank and you know what you are doing, you are investing it in, good stocks, then what happens is that more money comes to the shareholders of the bank. Let's not forget that depositors are not the shareholders. The shareholders are those who own the stocks of the bank, Therefore, we want you to think about here. Therefore, in one fund, one of them gives a return of 17.7%, another one gives 12.16%. Therefore, if I have to, as an employee of the bank, I have to invest, I will invest it on this one, which has a better return, but I have to look at the risks as well. If it is a risky company, putting the money in crazy companies and, those companies might go bankrupt, as a very careful person, I might go with this 12.16. Therefore, when you do the investment, one of the major components of investment is the issue of the risk that you have to take into calculation. And that risk is, some of you might take statistics and learn about standard deviation, and those things will calculate the risk as well. And those are, and concepts maybe, for other, chapters, if we have a chapter about it. But for now, we want you to understand these concepts, mutual funds, and we talked about exchange traded funds, closed-end funds, and we will talk a little bit more. This is problem 17.7, a closed-end fund. Closed-end fund, as we said, is a fund that you cannot, you usually don't sell, don't create more shares to sell, because you don't close it, because when you say close-end, that means that you cannot add more and more shares. If the company has 1,000 shares, it always has 1,000 shares. Therefore, if the people want to trade, what they do, they have to buy these shares from one another rather than, therefore they go to the stock market, because sellers go to the stock market. You go to Schwab and tell Schwab, sell this for me, Therefore, Schwab as a broker facilitates that you can sell your shares to other shareholders, to other buyers. Therefore, that is an exchange, they go to the exchange. Exchanges are NASDAQ, New York Stock Exchange. Schwab is an intermediary that when you place your order, it has connections to New York Stock Exchange, and it has computers that are connected to NASDAQ, and Schwab does those transactions. Buyers and sellers are, come to Schwab, and Schwab takes them, or to other companies, Schwab takes them to, to New York Stock Exchange. That's where the trades, take place. And therefore, we come to, again, back to here, and it says that sold at 24% discount, which means this stock has not been, this fund has not been doing great. That's why they had to sell it at discount. And then if the company distributed $1.3 a share, and on the return of investment, and round the answer, what is, in the share before considering the purchase, round the answer, what was return on the investment. Okay, therefore, what you have done is that you come here and price of the share, and then 1 minus 0.24, this was the discount. Therefore, rather than share of the company, instead of being $12, it was 9.69. Maybe it didn't have a good manager, or maybe it was a good manager. Something went wrong. The stocks of the company, didn't do the ones he instead of buying Walmart, instead of buying Amazon, the guy has bought the stocks of a crazy company, and that's why it sold at a discount. And the price of the share today, then you look at the numbers, how they changed, and the percentage that, this is what it is. You divide it by the amount of money that you paid, and, this is what it worth today. And this is, what you got, like a dividend or distribution. That is how much, money came to you, or, is worth today. You subtract it from what was the original money that was, and then you divide it by that. Therefore, 20.29%. Of course, let's not forget that this is not a bad return, And although it was, why it was like this, I'll tell you. You may be wondering why, why suddenly, if it was, although we looked at it as not a good fund, but in fact, why it is a good fund. Imagine when you bought this, you bought it at a very good time. Instead of, for example, buying it at how much? $12 as a buyer, you paid a very low price. The person who sold it to you is the one who was not in a good shape. You as a buyer, you bought it what? Very cheap. And because you bought it very cheap, it went from 9.69 to $12. This is an excellent scenario. Do you see that? And then, therefore, you were a lucky person that you bought it at a discount. You always want to buy it as a discount, or wouldn't it? Wouldn't be? Therefore, the person who held on to it, had bought it for $12 is the loser. You as a buyer, you bought it cheap. You got also some $1.30, added to your money. Therefore, the return that you have is 30%. Let's not forget 30% is a huge return. We all talked and said these days you put your money in the bank is not going to give you even 1% a year. You don't believe me? Put $100 in, regular checking account or saving account. In checking account, after 1 year, you see that 2 pennies have, be added to your, money. However, if you had put the same $100 in this fund, your $100 would have been $129.21. Therefore, think about this compounding over 10 years or 30 years. Those students who have invested in their retirement, if they find a good investment in stocks, in bonds, in mutual funds, therefore they can make a fortune, assuming they know what they are doing, and assuming that they are not taking a lot of risk. And this is the final problem. And the stock market return is 6.75% per year in the past 10 years. When it says stock market, that means on average, it's just think about a stock market as a bank. A bank is giving you 6.75%. I just used as a bank, just as an example. Now, you go to a manager of mutual fund, for example. This manager is performing how much? 7%. Therefore, is doing better than the bank because the bank is giving you 6.7. This manager fund is giving 7% per year, and a passive EFT. A passive means that the manager is not active. Some managers are not active, means they buy some very good stocks. They don't touch it tomorrow. They don't sell. They don't add. They just sit there and watch. Therefore, usually this manager charges less money. Do you know why? Because they work less, which is fine. Sometimes you don't want manager to keep buying and selling, that's called an active fund. But this fund is an, ETF means exchange traded funds. When we say exchange traded funds, means you can buy these funds just like stocks at any time, going to, Schwab and say you'd want to buy this ETF. As soon as you say you want to buy this ETF, if it is between the trading hours of 9:30 to 4 p.m., right away at 10 o'clock you put your place, and at 10 o'clock right away it buys it for you. And, it is exchange, it is traded over the exchange. When we say exchange, it means New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, however, ETFs are a little different from mutual funds. In many ways, they are similar, they are similar, but sometimes ETFs are a kind of might be more passive. Also, in that term, that if you go to Charles Schwab and you say you want to buy at 10 a.m., you tell Charles Schwab that you want to buy some mutual funds, the Schwab takes your order. But what will happen is that it cannot buy it for you at 10 a.m. It will buy it for you when the stock market closes at 4 o'clock. It has to go there and calculate how much was the value of Amazon, how much was the value. It's not instant. It happens, at just one day. Then at the end of the year, it will, it processes your transaction, and the next morning you will see your mutual fund, it's showing in your portfolio. Are mutual funds better than ETF? Doesn't matter, many people might be excellent mutual funds. Therefore, you don't need to be worried about whether you are buying mutual funds or ETF funds. They are little, different in different issues, but we want you to know what they are, because sometimes the one reason you buy mutual funds and ETF funds, it is because you might say that you are not a professional manager, you are not as an individual investor, you don't know what to buy. Therefore, if that's the case, let the mutual fund managers do that. They charge a very, very little fee, which is fine, as long as it is 0.025, 0.02. These are not that much of an expense. Assuming the fund is a good fund, you buy them, and these funds sometimes target certain areas. Suppose you might say you are very interested in the stock market on China. Therefore, there are some ETFs, there are some mutual funds that only invest in China. You might say you only are interested in technology companies. There are some ETFs, there are some mutual funds that only invest in, they buy Amazon, Tesla, Microsoft, and therefore you don't need to spend too much time researching yourself. All you have to do is to research whether the fund has been a good fund and give your money to the fund manager and hope for the best. And these funds, true, are being monitored by the Securities and Exchange Commission to make sure that they are. Of course, there are risky funds. There are funds that invest in bonds. You might say, oh, you don't know about bonds. How can I invest in bonds? You can go and buy mutual funds. And these are the calculations. And this has to the power 10. And most likely it is 10 years, maybe at some point it has said. And active ending balance. When it says ending balance here, that most likely in mutual, it is future value, ending balance most likely. Therefore, you can use your calculator to do the future value. And the ETF has done better. Do you see that? Although the ETF this is active fund and this is passive fund. The passive fund has done better, and it tells you why it has done better. Maybe the manager was passive, maybe manager charged less commission, maybe manager, therefore we'll go through the problem and you will understand. If, as I said, any student who wants to convert this, as I said, you are not required, put problem 4 here, problem 5 here, click here, put problem 6, and uses. And also, you can also use f of x if you know how to, utilize this one. When I went to college, I had to take classes in finance. They forced me to buy a financial calculator. I have to pay 120, 130. But these days, the programs, the software will do it for you. You all saw that calculator.net does excellent job in many of these calculations. If you know how it works, it calculates your future value. Maybe problem number 8 can be used for future value. If you want to use this to see how it works, it does. If you want to learn about the mathematical way of doing it, you may, it's great to know about the mathematics. If you learn about math behind these problems, that makes you extremely smart, and you can make a lot of money. If you have any questions, you let me know, and we want you to, concentrate on this chapter, listen to this, watch these videos. I put some good videos for, no-end funds, closed-end funds, open-end funds, and that gentleman who is talking is a great teacher, and it tells you clearly the differences between closed-end funds and, open-end funds.